Back again, and we have the engine unwrapped. That nice smooth deck. I think I've shown you that before anyway, but it's fucking hot today, man. So we've got all the doors open apart from the one. Fucking absolutely sweating, man, sweating. So we started messing about on the old block. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 3 down, 1 to go, number 4. Talk you through what I've done here. Basically, all you do to start with is you have a gudgeon pin which goes through your piston and holds the small ending of your com rod. These com rods are symmetrical, so it doesn't matter which way they go around, but because you get a bit of OCD, you get used to putting things the way you want them, even though these rods aren't chamfered, so they're not directional with the crank. So what I would do is, well, I don't tell you everything I do, but you get a bit of OCD and you do things a certain way. But what I've done here is rod pins are in, and basically gudgeon pins are in, and these are, well, I call them wrist pins. There's a specific name for these ones. You get like 3 or 4 different types. Like you get the circlip one, you get they even do it literally bolting gudgeon pins now for like in drag cars and things. I tell you what, out of engine building, I don't know if anyone else will agree, when you're building engines, that little thing there, yeah, is the worst part about building engines, man. Getting these in, basically, because that has to sit inside there. I'll show you. You can see the locating groove in there. 1 sec. Just push that back out a bit to show you. That's your gudgeon pin. That goes through there. See if I can show you the locating ring. So yeah, back together. So in there's your groove. So that goes in there. A couple of tips what I do. I always deburr the end of these rings so you don't get any scratches on here. Basically, you can afford to get a scratch on this area here. You can't afford to scratch here, or here. Anything that touches the ball face, you can't afford to scratch. You can get a little airline scratch on the side here. Do you know what I mean? You can always flat it if you're that concerned. All it's going to do is hold a little bit of oil anyway. So, but yeah, you can't afford to scratch anywhere other than there or under there slightly. Anything that touches the ball face, basically. Anything on that piston that touches that, no scratches. Do you know what I mean? You can't. If I scratch that, you know, it's game over. So the reason number 4 isn't done yet is because I'll show you why. 1 second. Is because I haven't gapped my rings yet. Right. As much as some people, you'd be amazed. It says Total Seal. Total Seal is the name of the ring. There is a bit of an extra length on your oil scraper ring in regards to no gaps down there, if I remember correctly, I think. But Total Seal is only for the oil scraper on this bottom piece here. I'll have to remember. I can't remember. I'm sure Total Seal. I'll find out when I get back to them. I haven't used Total Seal for a while. But the reason I kept a piston free is because when I'm gapping my rings, I just drop my piston in like that to get my ring symmetrical in the bore. Yeah. That's it basically. So gapping my rings next, turn it over, crank it. Once the rings have been gapped, I'll show you a bit of the ring gapping process. Once they've been gapped, rings onto the pistons, number the pistons as I'm going along, and I will get the crank in. When I put the crank in, it's not just a case of throwing it either. You have to plastic gauge it, make sure your clearances are correct. I'll show you that as well. It might probably bore the death out you, do you know what I mean? But I'll give you a bit of engine building process. Cheers. Right, we've opened up the rings, we've got the feeler gauges out. basically, when it asks you to gap the rings, you get a conversion set, a guidance table, depending on what pistons you're using. We're using JE, and it all comes obviously in metric. So you have to convert to imperial. But again, with these, they're a little bit vague. Do you know what I mean? They'll give you pretty much, if you look on here, it's Society of Automotive Engineering come up with some guidelines, and you've got your top ring, your second ring, and your scraper ring. Always be careful with these. Make sure they're the right way up as well, because they are directional. The top one on this series doesn't say. Some of them say top. That one says top. That one doesn't. But then you'll know on the chamfered edge of the ring which way it goes. You should have a directional instructions with it. Going off these, the gaps within tolerance, that needs grinding. So scraper rings need grinding because need 15 thou, and I can't get a 15 thou feeler gauge in there. Now, when I say within tolerance, it kind of gives you a blessing to go on your own recommendations on what you are using the engine for. Do you know what I mean? People think tighter rings create a bigger bang, this, that, and the other. If you got boost, you want to ring a bigger gap. Do you know what I mean? The more shit you're throwing in there, the bigger the gap needs to be. But the tolerance on this is between, would you believe, I think it was, what was it on that one? Let me have a look. Yeah. So recommended tolerance on the top and the bottom, the same tolerances. So top and the middle is anywhere between 10 and 22 thou. Which I think that one is 17 thou. I think that one was 19 thou already. Do you know what I mean? So they're miles above 10, but below 22, and that's going on bore sizes as well, bore size recommendations. So if I was running turbo on this, I'd go up to the outer perimeters of the recommendations. You know, since this is NA, this will stay within the recommendations. So I'll just deburr these, make sure there's no crap on them, yeah, they're within tolerance. This one needs grinding on the ring grinder, which I'll show you. Which I can't remember the last time I had top and set of rings within tolerance out the bag. Don't really want to make these any bigger. NA, do you know what I mean? But it's a road car, so you could afford, because it's a road car, I could afford to go to the outer side of the tolerance really on these, which I might do. Like I said, I don't give too many specs on what degrees and where I go away, like, do you know what I mean? But this is how you gap your rings. So your gap's down there. So what did I say that was? Between 10 and 22 thou that recommendation was on that one. So if you look at this one, that feeler gauge is in there, and that is 17 thou on that. So it's way above the 10 already. Yeah, so anyway, that's what we're doing. We're gapping rings, and we've got, yeah, that's just the first ring. We're using all the bores just to show you, but what I'll do is only put them in there to show you. These bores are identical anyway, but what you want to do is do one ring in there, take that out, put it aside for piston number one, then the next ring, so you do the rings in the board the pistons are going into, just in case you haven't got any variance in tolerances, you know what I mean? But when this was bored, I did give my engine machiner, who bores and decks these, the sets of pistons to make sure, and the pistons were within tolerance. Sometimes you'll get some pistons that are a little bit oval out the cast, do you know what I mean, out the machining. But these pistons, these JE ones, are bang on, so all were perfect. So yeah, you got to take a lot of things into consideration, man. So yeah, right, I'm going to move on. Don't know what I'll show you next. See you in a bit. Dickhead. Dickhead number 2 today. Right, we're back. Today we're going to carry on gapping piston rings, but then once the rings are gapped, we need to move on to putting the crank in. So there's a set of mains and big end bearings and fresh washers. Oh, and most important, plastic gauge. I'll show you through that after. So gonna move on and get these rings gapped, man. See you in a bit. Back at it, well, still at it. So all the rings gapped, and on the pistons now, pistons are numbered, and I tell you what, it's 30 degrees, man. It is fucking hot. So in regards to showing your processes and the crank and that and plastic out, I tell you what, the sweat's dripping off me. It's going into my eyes, man. So anyway, there's the engine together, well, bottom end, and all that's torqued down. Look at that. A nice smooth movement in there. That's what you want. No major crank float or anything like that. So turn it over now, drop the pistons in. I'm gonna have a break though, because like I said, it is really, it's like 30 degrees in the wife's car, and well, look where she's like 20 minutes away, so it is hot, man. So I'm gonna turn it over. I don't know if I get the pistons in today, because it's too hot. See you in a bit. Well, I've been pushing on through the heat. Even the boys getting up now. But time is it? 20 past 5. But touring. There you go. Look at that for deck heights. TDC. So don't forget that's protrude and that's proud, but we've got a gasket to go on there, and then you've got your squish area in the cylinder head. So, come on. 2 and 3 done. We've got 1 and 4 to do. I'm going to do them tomorrow. So it's been a couple of days on here so far, so yeah, I'll leave it for today. The rods are done up. Bit frustrating. I've searched this afternoon for my stretch gauge, and I can't find my stretch gauge anywhere. Options for doing ARP rod bolts up, you can generally there's two ways of doing them up. Use ARP stretch gauge, well, just a rod bolt stretch gauge. You can get ARP one, there's different ones as well, but it's ARP stretch gauge or a torque sequence. You can't do both. Do you know what I mean? If you do both, you end up with different length bolts and different stretches and that, but I've always used the stretch gauge. These ARP 2000 bolts. You can use a torque sequence. I've had to use a torque sequence today. Just torque them. People get confused with stretch bolts. They think they have to do them up, tighten them, do them up, tighten them, loosen them. This ain't just stretch them. It doesn't work like that. When you do it up, it stretches. When you undo it, it will go back to its natural state to a degree. And when you use a stretch gauge, you'll see the tolerance, and it will generally be, I don't know, anywhere between, let's say, let's just say 5 thou and 12 thou, and you get the rod between that. Do you know what I mean? And if you're torquing it, you can use it to set up your torque wrench. So basically, if you just do one up to 30 newton meters on a rod on your torque bar, and then measure it, and it's a 1,000 off of your estimated stretch, you know your torque bar is pretty accurate. Do you know what I mean? So that's the one thing. I've got a snap-on torque bar I'll show you, and I had that calibrated, and the fucking thing's packed. It's broke. I need to try and fix it. So I've used one of my backup torque wrenches, torque bars. And we've gone down the torque sequence. So, but she's spinning over lovely by hand. Do you know what I mean? But I would have liked to do a stretch gauge to replace it. They're like 250 quid, I think. I've had a look. They're like 4 or 5 days in postage. If they'll buy another one, that's what I know. I don't like buying tools I know I've got, but can I find it? Found all my other verniers, but I can't find my stretch gauge, so yeah, just a bit of frustration, me waffling. So we've gone down the torque route anyway, so I'm going to leave it there for today. I'll catch up with you again tomorrow. Cheers. Back again. This is the next day, and bottom end's buttoned up. Turn it over, one sec. There we have it. All 4 pistons, rods, crank, about with it. Yeah, one sec. Well, this gasket is just for visual purposes only. I don't use these gaskets on fresh builds. I use multi-layered steel gaskets, MLS gaskets. Still waiting for the 2 litre one to come in. I've only got 2.3 ones, so I'm waiting for the 2 litre one to come in a post at the minute. That's ordered from Germany. But this is just your run-of-the-mill gasket. But it shows you the squish area. So the piston was risen from the deck height, wasn't it, when I showed you before? But obviously, well, that's TDC, and then there's your compression ring. So it's pretty fucking close there. You know what I mean? Because we're taking up the squish area of the head, which creates compression, which creates a big bang. Do you know what I mean? But that brings me to my next point. ECU and loom budget isn't there, so we're going to have to use the full ECU, which is the old Pectoral system. Spoke to Toby, aka Monkey London, and he said it was mapped onto that standard engine that was in there. So we can start it, we can't drive it. So that's it. So I got some low flying aircraft today from the look like from the Second World War periods. There's a naval base, army base over the mountain, which they practice on. So they're doing some low flying bomb drops today, so we might hear some bangs in the background, some bombs going off. But yeah, so I'm waiting for the correct gasket to come. Just spoke to Martin at MGA, and the cylinder head will be ready next week, end of next week. So today's it today. It's Wednesday today, so a week's time. But like I said, I can put the head on once the block's in the car. I can carry on building this anyway. I've still got a lot to do to this engine, even though pistons and crank are in. That's not half of it, is it? Do you know what I mean? There's a lot to do yet. Hopefully my new belt will be here today for my lathe, because we've got a mould steel and 10 fitting, which I modified to go here. As you can see, it sits there quite flush, and without my lathe, it ain't too bad anyway. Look, if you clean up the block surface. What I like to do is machine this down so it sits in there a bit more flush. Do you know what I mean? And then I just put a few tacks on it. A few tack welds, you only need a few tacks, don't need to run a bead around it. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got an AN10 block breather, crankcase breather welded to the block. So yeah, so I've got to sort that out. Sump wise, I need to take the sump down to the parts cleaner. Haven't been through all these parts yet. My shot blaster, waiting for some new grit / sand to turn up for it. But this is a bit, I've been over it on the outside, and we've got some very weak looking welds in certain areas, you know. Some bad repairs, but whoever in their wisdom put this baffle in the sump as well. If you just use Phillips posi drives, like, do you know what I mean? It's caught a crank rod here, do you know what I mean? It's pretty battered. I'm going to put it in the parts wash. I'm gonna have to drill these off, man. Do you know what I mean? Because I can't get them undone. I'm gonna try and cut across them and put a flathead in there, but if not, I'm gonna have to drill them out. That's a fucking mess, that is, man. So it looks like I might be going down there, just one of my standard baffle routes, you know. Yeah, we'll just see. I get that in the, hopefully, it's Wednesday, so hopefully by Friday I can have that in the parts, in the shop blaster, parts washed and shop blaster, clean it up. A lot of crap in there as well, I need to pick out and clean up. Yeah, so we'll start cleaning things up to go back onto this engine, basically. Yeah. So that's where we're at with the 2 litre. The 2.3, I need to use parts off of the engine that's in there. Crank rods is what I need to use off that engine in there. So I need to get that engine out. So I can build mine. So I can build my 2.3 up to go back in there. I still haven't done the tunnel reinforcement, so we'll plod on with that. As I said, I'm going to try and push on with that as we're working on this. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. Yeah, that's where I'm at the minute. So hopefully I'll have a load of things come in the post, you know what I mean? I'm waiting for, get my lathe belt so I can machine down things like that. Get my shop blaster going. Loads of things, so. Okay, I don't know how this compilation of videos is going to do this week because it's my first one back after a little while. I had some time off. I'll show you why. 1 second. Well, you know why. I'll show you something before we go. We've got Dickhead as well. Look at that. Look at the reaction on that. Hey, look at that. Sniper reaction that was, wasn't it, mate? Sniper. Still a dickhead, look. 1 sec. My boy's home. Bless him. He's home, ain't you, pal? So he's back home with his brothers and his sister, actually. I'm gonna sort them out later because they're basically in storage in the house somewhere, because when we moved, they still haven't sorted them. But the boxes have got bigger over the years. We've got one to go next to him, which is Chaos, and one to go next to him, which is Sadie. She was the first, and then we got a few. Keep my boys together, but I got a plan where they're going to go. So boys and girls together. Yeah. So he's back and in the workshop for now. I'll take him home later. He's focused staying in the workshop. He isn't. He's going home with me. Right, I don't know if that'll be the end of it for this week. I'm not too sure where I'm going to get before the end of this video. If that's the end of it, I'll leave you on a good note. See you later. Nope, I haven't finished. This is to show you what people don't see. This is the hours and hours that go into parts washing, cleaning parts, making them look brand new. There's no point cleaning them to make them look brand new if they're no good anyway. But this one, this pump is nice, man. Basically, you don't want any cross hatching or scoring in this body at all. And on this drive, this is your oil pump, so it's fully stripped down. What was wrong with it, which is basically a common fault in the outer body here. See the gallery that goes down there? There's a gallery that goes down there. This bucket goes into there and it's spring loaded off that spring with that nut in the end, and that's your pressure relief valve with the tension of that spring there. They come loose, so this was already loose but it'd never ever been Loctited, so yeah, that's what they do, they come loose. So this has all been scrubbed up, cleaned up, looking brand spanking, and now it's going to go back together, Loctite, 2 bolts that hold it together, and then you Loctite the 4 bolts that hold it into the block. You don't want that coming out. This is your drive. It's your drive spline. This has an outer sprocket running into it there, and then your chain drives this. This spins and basically turns this around in there. You see that's a 5 teeth drive. You got 4 teeth on this spline. You got 4 teeth on the drive because as it's spinning round, it leaves the gap and the oil goes into the gap and then gets pushed up into these galleries in the pump, basically. So this is sucking and pushing at the same time. So it sucks from one side of the pump and pushes out another. Yeah, that's your pump. That's sometime in the parts wash. Now I've got to go back to the parts wash and start scrubbing other things. Some things need shot blasting before they go in the parts wash machine, but you don't shot blast this stuff. This just been clean within an inch of its life, so start rebuilding this, get it back in the block. Cheers. Even more today, I couldn't help myself. Got this cleaned up in the parts wash. I didn't go too mad, just wanted to degrease it so I could have a good look at it. And seen that bit anyhow where rods exploded, something caught that baffle in the past. But yeah, wow. This was caked in shit, so you couldn't see anything. But we've got a weld repair here, a patch here. We've got a patch running down there. We've got a patch here, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 patch. Turn it over. Patched badly. Patched. Patched. Yeah, this is pretty much scrap. And the reason I wanted to add this in and not leave it out today is because that's not the worst of it. This is scrap. Do you know what I mean? This is take some shit, but this can be cut off and a new piece welded on, but you'd have to refabricate parts in here. It's not going to, because I use my own baffles, so I'll use one of my own baffles that I make. Because I just can't, like, well, I'm the first to say that a weld can be stronger and generally is stronger than a cast item itself anyway. Yeah, there's some shit welds they are, man, and they're all over it. Like this, I don't know, half a dozen repairs on that. It's scrap. It's not a rally car. Do you know what I mean? We're not. It could be. It's a genuine F2 show, but we're not building a rally car. Do you know what I mean? And even if you was building a rally car, weld repairs like this is shit you do just to get to the end of the weekend stages. You know what I mean? Then you fuck this off in the bin and you get another sump if you don't take one with you to spares. That's just crap, right? But what you got to think of is when this car came to me, it was running, and then if you look back at the videos where Toby, aka Monkey London, blew it up, and you look at the Mad Forward engineering who stripped it, it was dead through detonation, so compression loss. If you look, Toby was still driving it, so the drivetrain, the chain down from the crank up to the cat, everything was still turning. It was just noisy. He drove it back to the pits. It was just a very noisy engine, lost compression, dropped a valve, I think, or something. I can't remember exactly what was in the video, but I know he had detonation on pot 4 or something like that. So it was making noise from that. I can't remember if the rods were fucked or what, but it was still running. So it's had a rebuild since then. So you think on a rebuild, this would have been stripped and cleaned, wouldn't you? No, and I can tell you why. This has never been stripped and cleaned, because I've stripped it and cleaned it today. And I know this isn't from the Monkey London engine blow up. Look at this. Look at that. That is a piece of timing chain linkage. You can see it's not supposed to be that shape. Do you know what I mean? Taking a bit of abuse, that is, you know what I mean? That's off a timing chain. That's a link off a timing chain. That was floating around in the bottom of there. So, which engine blew up? Well, I know which engine blew up. It was the Maltune one. But wasn't the motor one when Toby blew it up. So how many times did this engine blow up in the past? And when was that left in there? I know it's blown up differently to when Toby done it, because these repairs are from a rod going through the sump. Do you know what I mean? Bits of a rod flying through the sump. So we know we've had rods go in the past, which wouldn't snap a chain. We've had detonation in the past, which wouldn't snap a chain. So that's one engine blown up, two engine blown up. Found the chain in the sump, that's three engines blown up. How many fucking engines has this car blown up? You know, it's only on, was it 20-something thousand miles? The fuck have people been playing at? Do you know what I mean? Because I know this car's been to multiple different companies, do you know, over the years to have engines built. And by the look of it, they've all blown up. When you build a forged engine like these, you do have to service intervals, you know, you have to, it's a hard life to live with a car like this, an engine like this, a forged engine. Depending on the use of the car, do you know what I mean? Service intervals, you have to be very regular. Engine rebuilds, you have to strip it, do you know what I mean? Depending on the usage, it could be every year, do you know what I mean? It could be stripped. Road use every few thousand, do you know what I mean? It needs a check over, really, do you know what I mean? It needs a service, in my opinion, a forged block, everything, a service every 1,000, do you know what I mean? Stripping a rebuild every few thousand, in my opinion, just to check it over, do you know what I mean? That's what these engines. So is it down to engine builders in the past building engines that are not capable? Is it down to owners not servicing regularly? Is it down to owners not having a rebuild done? Is it down to builders being absolute plebs? Do you know what I mean? Not knowing what they're doing? Or is it lack of knowledge of these engines, man? Because these engines, an engine's an engine at the end of the day. As long as you know the tolerance parameters, you can build an engine. Do you know what I mean? If you don't know tolerance parameters, ask the manufacturer, the piston, the rods, the cams. The information's all out there. An engine's an engine. From a fucking 2-pot to a fucking 12-pot, you know what I mean? Yes, there's different things to learn. Do you know what I mean? But the information's out there. If you haven't got it, don't just guess it, man. So, I don't know. It's crazy, isn't it? How many engines it's been through. If we're looking at that, I know it's been through three absolutely catastrophic failures. And that's just from the evidence that's in front of me. 3 catastrophic failures. How many more? You know what I mean? So, anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I think my videos are piling up, so I'll have a look at the time spans of, because I'm going to try and fit it all in. Do you know what I mean? Don't know if this will be the end or it'll be the beginning of the second video, because I've got that much footage. So, I hope you're enjoying me being back. I'm enjoying now doing the videos for you again and having a chat and showing you what I'm up to. So, nice one. See you later.